All right, we're live. What's up, everybody? Once again, my name is Sunny Ray. This is the Sunny Ray Show. Today, I'm joined by Gabriel. Gabriel, are you in Argentina right now? You are,
Correct.
right? I heard you moved back. Okay,
Yes.
cool. So I'm super pumped. How are you doing today?
Very excited to be on this podcast.
Yes, I'm excited as well. I was just I was this morning reading about your background. It's quite fascinating, I must say. Okay, so in terms of let's kick off, if you don't mind, with a sentence or two on what you're working on today, maybe the name of the company, and then
Yep.
we're gonna come back to that properly later. But I like to just call out the pink elephant and then yeah, go from there.
Yeah. So I'm Gabriel. I'm Argentinian, but I actually lived in the US for about 15 years, and I made a
Mhm.
career for myself in software engineering. I worked at top startups like Robinhood and OpenSea, and I crossed paths with a recruiting startup at some point, and I really liked the industry. Somehow something clicked, and so I started doing recruiting on my end, like doing like freelance gigs. And once I understood the market, I built a company. I started building a company called Silver. It's called Silver mainly because the river that separates Argentina and Uruguay is called the Silver River, and basically that's where I focus like all my talent search. And so I built a company that is serving some of the most demanding companies in the world, like Twitter or Scale AI, and I help them find talent in Latin America. And so basically, I turned myself into an engineer recruiter. So that's the gist.
Super cool. So I was reading, and you essentially, like you said, you grew up in Argentina and ended somehow up as the #1 Go player of your
Yeah.
generation in South America. So I guess my question was, what was life like for you as a kid in Buenos Aires?
So it's a very, very interesting story because Argentina went through a major financial crisis in 2001. That's something that really marked everyone. And so back then, I wanted to think about what was I going to do to support myself, to support my family. And, it was programming was there, like it was an option for me. But I felt a calling to play a board game called Go. Like for people that don't know it, it's like chess in Asia. It's like very, very famous in Asia and way more than chess over there. And so the community that plays Go in the Western world is actually very, very small. And so I started playing in that and something clicked. Like I'm a very avid gamer. And I decided when I was 16 years old, after playing this game for about 3 months, I decided to become a professional player. And so at that point, I started the path, which I would only compare it to going to college. It took me 4 years to become, the top 1% player in the world. And so that competitive exposure builds character, builds habits, builds a mindset. And so even though it was only 4 years, I'm a big old man now. I'm 40, right? And so this happened between being 16 and like 20, but it really marked like everything that I did later because I faced extreme adversity. Like it was an extremely competitive environment. And so that really marked like many of the things that I did later. And eventually it helped me go into the industry as a software engineer because I didn't go to college, basically didn't go to college, but I had the competitive like hunger, right? And so it helped me. I actually built a website where you could play Go online. So I built one of the first real-time systems for websites, and that was my calling card to startups in the US. So I skipped an entire cycle of going to college by building a product with users, with sales, with influence. Very interesting product. And so that's how, it started, helped me get into the industry.
And then you had I guess like a real fork in the road, right? To either become a Go professional player or go build software. Like what tipped the scale towards Go?
Um, I I believe it's strange because it's almost like religious, but I do believe that sometimes you feel a calling. You feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? And so at some point I was 18 and it was like I finished high school and now the decision was very clear because well you're at school, it doesn't matter. But at some point I had to say, am I going to be studying 16 hours a day to be the best in the world in this game? Or will I be, studying computer science? And I think like it was a no-brainer in the sense that it was literally made with no brain. Like it's just, I'm supposed to be doing this. I had like a force majeure. I'm supposed to be playing the game. And so when that concluded, I got to a point where I said, like, now I understand what this will entail for the rest of my life. I could say, like, I'm not going to do it. And after that, I could go back to software engineering and feel that that was what I was supposed to be doing. So I do think that one has to find your own calling, right? And that's how I also made the change later. Like I made 10 years, 12 years working as a software engineer, and then I switched to recruiting, and it's basically starting over. And people say, like, hey, software engineering pays so much. Why are you there? And I do answer, like, what do you mean money? Like I'm not choosing this out of money. I'm doing it out of purpose. This is what I'm supposed to be
doing. That's very inspirational. Hey, I was gonna say, so there's also between 2011, is it that you went to Korea to train in the mountains for at a shot at becoming,
doing.
or is that did my
It
research take me
was in
away?
Oh wow. No, I did. So I stopped being a professional player in 2006, but I always, I started like studying and getting my first job as a software engineer. But I was also going through the motions of how could I get both things, right? Like being a software engineer, building a career that pays well, that gives you a future, etc. And also like my passion for that game. So I reconnected with the game as an amateur, and I went to Korea. I lived in Korea in a total about 7 months in two different periods. And Korea was like the most important country to play this game. Like the strongest professionals, the better funding, the better schools. So on my last period as an amateur, I went to Korea. I was actually building that website. It was called Kaya JS. Kaya is the tree used to build the boards for the game. I love that name, by the way. And so I actually went to that tournament, but I was also pitching my product, just go play on my server, right? And I was also selling at that point. But yeah, it was 3 months of literally living in the mountains. I'm talking about like having a small hut of 8 people and climbing down ice every day to go to a place and just practice on the board 16 hours a day.
And then you also openly wrote about how Kaya eventually ran out of money and momentum. You
Yeah.
wrote openly about it. So what was the hardest lesson from that failure?
I would say there are two big things that I should have corrected back then. I didn't know how to, which makes sense. I was only like, 22 or something, and it was actually kind of like my second job in some way. The first thing is that I was just not technically good. And like it's good, like it makes sense. I only had 1 year and a half of experience. The quality was not very high of that experience. So when I had to build my things, of course, I learned a lot doing them because I crashed the car into the wall a million times, and so I learned that way very quickly. But also, like it's very hard to build a business when you're building it on sand, right? So I learned a lot, but it also took me a lot of time to get it to a place where the project worked well. Also, gaming. Don't go into gaming. It's like extremely hard engineering, and the payoff is very small. So it's just very, very hard. And the second lesson was maybe, I had issues with my co-founder, but I could frame it that the second issue is how do you deal with interpersonal relationships? And there are many things I can say about that. That could be one interpretation. Another one is that I shouldn't have been so alone. Like as a team, we were 2 people building this. If I had an advisor outside that could like help me like navigate the situation, I think it's very hard to build something from scratch and make it work. It's extremely hard. And so it's stupid to do it alone because some other people already went through it and then can save you months of time and effort and pain. And so just don't do things completely alone because you don't have to. Like it's not like it's hard. Like it's easy to find someone that will help you out.
Yeah. Well, now in this AI age, everyone's talking about this single person billion-dollar company. I just wonder how much fun that'll be, when you could be working with other aligned human beings. And anyways, hey, so I was going to ask you, so you went from Scribed, I think you were at Circle Medical to
Yeah.
Robinhood to OpenSea
Yeah.
each one bigger in its own way. At what point did you realize you were building towards something else?
So in 2019, that was before Robinhood. I started interviewing at multiple companies, and I met with a YC company called TripleByte. I went to that company and I had a 2 hour long session with a product manager at that company. Like the interview was supposed to be 1 hour. We stayed like almost 2 hours talking about this. And like I was just hammering, how does this market work? How do you make money? How does this? And just something clicked. And I liked like the industry. I felt I was realigned with the industry so much that I wanted to do something. And then I asked them, like, you're building this marketplace in the US for US companies with US talent. What about like the remote talent, like Argentina and all that? I want to help other people get here. And they're like, it's a small market. They're right about that. It's a small market, etc., etc. And I was like, okay, then I'm going to build my own marketplace. I'm going to build it with Argentinians and US companies. And so I made that kind of like decision in 2019 that I wanted to do something about it. And so I was not nearly prepared to build a recruiting business there. Like I knew nothing about it. But 6 months later, the pandemic hit, like just months later. And when the pandemic hit, I said, remote work is going to be a thing now. Like it's going to be very, very popular. And so I started SilverDev. I made the landing page and I converted my first customers in June, July of 2020. So it was still people were saying like, hey, like the pandemic is going to be over. And it was like, remote work is going to be a thing. So I started building Silver from 2020 to 2023, I would say, as a freelancer. I had my own job and I would do it. I would have a podcast and I would, do 4 hours a week, 10 hours a week, handling it kind of like a makeshift operations. And I learned how to do classical recruiting. And then when I went back to Argentina in 2023, one of the main reasons I wanted to go back was to build this business. So 2023, I get back in May. By August, I have my first employee. And so now the company has about 11 employees. And so the company is growing quite well.
So at SilverDev, you guys help connect Argentinians and Uruguayans with or engineers in those countries with US startup jobs, right? So why did you focus on Latin America specifically? Is it because you're from there or some other reasons as
yes.
well?
I mean, I do all of LatAm, but like to be honest, like I have a podcast as well. It's called Tecnología Informal, and it's a very influential niche podcast, and it's in Spanish. So, for example, it's difficult for people in Brazil to know about me because they haven't heard my podcast, but it's well known in Argentina, like to the point that you go to a meetup or like an engineering meetup, and people are talking about the podcast. Like it's very niche, but they know about it, right? And so it makes sense for me to get, to work the audience. It's like a market position, it's branding, etc. And I have a unique advantage. Like the US market is really competitive in recruiting, but the LatAm market, like the issue with people in LatAm, the recruiting firms, agencies, is that they never lived in the US. They never worked for a US startup. So they don't have the language, they don't understand it, they don't connect very well. But for me, it's easy. Like I talk to them and it's like, I always tell this story about Twitter. Twitter came to me and, the team gets on the call and I'm trying to do the pitch for my business. And they have like the mask of I'm talking with a vendor from another country that doesn't know anything. So they speak corporate speak completely. And I'm like, hey guys, you're in front of that building, right? Like the one on Market and 10. Yeah, I used to live in front of there. I used to see into your mini golf on the ceiling, and you can see on their faces that they're like, "Oh my God, this guy understands," and then they can, talk freely. So I connect very well with companies, and Silver is not a VC-backed startup that has like the kind of explosive growth mechanics that it needs to survive. It's more of a small business, right? And so profitability is important. And how do you make profits in a business? You have to be better than everyone else. Like that's pretty simple. If you're better than everyone else, you make money. So it's much better to be better than everyone else than being in a huge market. VCs need huge markets because otherwise, they can't grow.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So you launched Interview Ready? Is that the name of one of your podcasts, or it's a program, right? That coaches devs.
Yeah, that's a coaching program. So after I strongly recommend founders to do a podcast or streaming. Like I think making content is actually very hard. Like you need to be constant. It turns out it's not that easy to organize the content, to know your audience. It's really a skill, and it really is leverage. Media and coding is leverage. Media is leverage, right? Like if you have to tell everyone about your company all the time, you can tell it to 40 people a week at best. But if you have media, you can tell it to thousands of people every week. So it gives you leverage. And so once you learn how to do content, how it works, how much effort you have to put in, you unlock some other tools for your company. And so one of the issues I had was that repeatedly with candidates, I had to explain what companies expect out of them in an interview process. It was like, well, you should prepare, so you do this, and you talk about this, and you do the cracking the coding interview, and you do some lead codes, etc., etc. So that took forever, right? And so I just packaged it into a product that I could sell. Because if people really wanted to know this information, they're going to pay for it. If they pay for it, I can spend time doing really good content for it. So I built a product, and it made money. Like it made like 120, 130K. And the big part about Interview Ready as a program is that it's supposed to be there not to make money in of itself. That's just the mechanics on how I set it up. But the people that prep themselves for interviews become good candidates for my main business. So people that interview well get into my companies. And so it's about being strategic also. So it has you leverage media and you help it build your business.
I love it. I love it. And then candidates have landed in Google, right? eBay, Vercel.
Yeah.
So what's your method?
My method. So interview prepping is a well-researched science in the US. Like people know how to prep. It's not too difficult. Like it's not very particular. Like it's not like there's some secret sauce. But it does happen that people in Latin America don't face the same interview process when they interview at local companies. And so they need an extra level of care to be convinced that the process makes sense, right? So it's a lot about explaining how recruiting actually works, so they understand that it's not some crazy company doing like random tests that are arbitrary. No, they make sense, and they solve an issue about signal, and this is how people perceive you if you say these things. So it has that soft track content that actually like very senior engineers, people that have passed interviews at companies like this, usually say like, I wish somebody had told me this 10 years ago. Now I understand it, but how many times did I pay a price because I did these stupid things? And so it's a lot about that.
Gotcha. So on your podcast, is it Tecnología Informal? Is that what it's called?
Tecnología Informal, like casual tech.
My wife is from Colombia. We've been together for 14 years, and my Spanish is worse today than it was when I met her. So I got to work on it. But I was going to say, you talk openly about startup failure. You talk about management crisis in Argentina. You talk about career strategy. So I guess my deeper question is like, why do you put it all out there?
I think that's the origin of my media arm is really so like for me not to repeat myself. Like honestly, like these are conversations I have with candidates, right? And they tell me like, hey, I'm having this issue. What do I do with it? And I tell them, have you talked to your manager? And they say, who's my manager? What do you mean you don't know who's your manager? Like, this is terrible. This shouldn't happen. You should have a manager and should be able to escalate. I mean, I had this conversation so many times, which is like, okay, let's make it into an episode. Let's make it into a media arm. So when someone says, hey, I have an issue with my manager or something else, I would point them the podcast. It was literally being lazy. Being lazy made me work on the podcast. So that's the origin. It does have like a particular feel. My podcast is not like an infomercial. It changed a lot over time. And at some point, it became a lot about my opinions on the industry. And that gave it a very authentic voice. Like it's very authentic. The people relate to it. Sometimes they disagree, but they understand that I'm telling my point of view on this. I'm not selling something. I'm literally saying what's going on. And it's being validated. I had a very unique thing with the podcast that I like to share, which is that very junior engineers, early career people, think I'm like BSing on the podcast. Like literally, they think I'm lying. And the very senior people that got really, really far, they say, Gabriel is the only one that's not lying. Like literally, that's the feeling. It's like the experts love me, and the juniorish have like more, like are a little more confused about the information I have. But yeah, the voice is authenticity, like the tone, the voice, the contact. It's like this is how I see it. This is how like exactly what's going on, and this is how you should think about it.
Very cool. So you also created Reva, an online appraisal
Cool.
platform, right? So how does that fit into your broader vision for what you're building?
It's interesting that I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I've been an employee a long time. Like I had like 5 jobs over time. I'm old. I am old. I'm an old person. But I always wanted to build my own things. Like I started my first like business when I was 16. I started giving Go lessons online, right? Like that was my first like way to make money. I'm making money on the internet in
Wow.
2002. Was not easy. Like it was not easy. It was uh, and so I always wanted to build my own thing. So I started doing services. Then I work as an employee for a company because I didn't make enough money otherwise. Then I built a Go school. And then when I wanted to evolve the Go school, I wanted to build software. So I got a job as a software engineer. Like my first job was very specifically chosen for me to learn how to build my own business. And so if you look at my history, particularly Circle Medical was like 4 years at a seed level startup. I was a founding engineer. So I dealt with software, but also product and also operations and also anything that was needed to make this business survive. And it definitely equipped me to deal with having a business. So I do recommend for engineers that are really committed or really want to build their own business to go through that experience because it's non-glamorous. It's kind of boring in some ways, but you need to be gritty and you need to accept that building a company it's shoveling manure. It really is like lots of things that are like really boring to do.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so I guess so. You also mentioned that SilverDev is bootstrapped with no outside funding. Was that a deliberate choice or a necessity? Or
um, I don't think silver is the business that merits getting VC funding unless it changes its scope quite a bit. Like if I wanted to turn silver into a VC backable company, I would have to say I'm going to go for all the talent in LatAm. I'm going to build software to scale it. I'm going to apply AI in some ingenious way to get like better margins than my competitors and build a moat. It's a different business. I think I don't want that for silver. I don't think it's a business for that. And I'm supposed to be doing this, right? I remember that. So if I'm supposed to be doing this and it's not like VC backable, then I shouldn't change it. But I think we are living in some times where VC backing is not as attractive as it used to be because it's easier to go to market now. Like you don't need 1 year of leeway to figure out how to make money. You can make money within 2 months because you have the payment infrastructure, you have distribution somehow, you build something and it's easy. Like the market it moves a lot faster, and so the business is so profitable. Like it really is so profitable. We are that much better than our competitors that the profit margins let me not need money. So if I don't need money and it's not going to be a VC backable business, like why would I even consider it, right? Like it's not the right choice for us.
I love that. So you recently moved back to Argentina after you said 10 years in the US, right? So you've talked about kind of like the reverse culture shock. How has being back changed your perspective on business?
Oh my god, on business, it changes my perspective on business. Um, I think even for all foreign people that everyone has some ties with their homeland. It could be cultural, it could, family, just living there. Like honestly, like it's very hard to raise a kid in the U.S. as a foreigner. Like you don't have the same roots, the same support network, etc., etc. And so every immigrant at some point has to make a decision of going back or not, right? But now when you go back, like you have the culture shock, and I can talk a lot about that, but you said business. Like honestly, if you are like if you want to build a business, you should aim for the US. Like the biggest mistake immigrants or migrants make in this regard is that they go back to their country and they want to build the US version of a business they liked in their home country. And except your home country is like China, the market is not big enough. You need to tackle the US market. And that's your advantage because you live there, you understand it, you have the language. And so, for example, when I go to agencies or recruiting agencies that work locally in Argentina, the clients are not the same. They pay a lot less. They're very less interesting. They're just like not as easy. Now I go to the US and it's like way bigger. They pay more money. They're more motivated. They're more work driven. So how would I relate going back to Argentina? Is like remember that even if you go back to your country, you should target the US market.
That sounds like wise words of wisdom, right? So I guess Gabriel, help me kind of land the plane. I had a couple questions. So where do you see SilverDev in 5 years from now? And yeah, maybe just help us paint that vision a little bit.
I love that. I think there are a few ways SilverDev could go. Um, the original vision of SilverDev was being a boutique agency, like really being the best talent agency in Argentina. And so just having really like the monopoly here in sense of like being the best, hands down, no competition. But we have learned many things over the last few years that make the model replicable, especially like in LatAm countries. So I would love to like one way could go. I hope some of my employees don't hear this because they've been telling me to do this for years, and I say no, which is like going to Brazil, right? Like, and Brazil is a much bigger market. So it's possible that one way Silver could go is just expanding to other countries, particularly Brazil in LatAm. And the other one is just really working or partnering with US companies in a different way. I would love to work with venture capital firms that have large portfolios, and all their companies don't hire in LatAm because they don't know how to, but it does fit their talent strategy if they have one, right? And so it's like, how do I make the market bigger? So my vision from 5 years from now will be that 10x the number of companies in the US also hire in Argentina because it's a good deal, because it works, because it gives you an advantage in the talent market. And so I would like my business to grow that way, to make the pie a lot bigger and just eat it.
Cool. So Gabriel, so silver.dev is the website. Where do people learn more about your train of thought? You said you have a couple of podcasts. Is it LinkedIn, Twitter? Where do you have a blog? Like where's the number one place people can go and follow you?
Yeah, if you're for people to follow me, like if you do like posts in Spanish, you should follow me on Twitter. I have a Twitter account named Conanbat, CON. You can look for SilverDev on Twitter and you're going to find me. If you like my English content, you should go to LinkedIn, which is where I explain things to founders, typically how they should approach the recruiting market. And then we also have a YouTube channel. We have some great interviews in English like this one. And also we have guests like Dax from Open Code, people from SED. These are very important. And so I recommend like the US audience to look into those podcasts to see how we think about that.
Hello, Gabriel, are you still there? Okay. Oh yeah, your camera froze there for a little bit. Cool, man. Well, yeah. Thank you for coming on the show. That's all I had for today. Thank you all for tuning in, and everyone else in the future who watches this. Yeah, I guess until next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Sunny.